I was happy to infiltrate people who are followers of the blind sheikh, because the blind sheikhs commit the biggest catastrophe to my life, assassinating my president on my watch. I was 300 to 400 feet from the stage where he was assassinated, because I was among the troops securing the parade. I was so very angry, and I promised him revenge.
And that's because President Sadat made the first attempts to make peace with the archenemy Israel. Is that correct?
Well, it was not an attempt. I mean, he was fought tooth and nail by the Arab leaders not to make this deal, but he stood his ground and he believed that Israeli people have the rights to live, Egyptian people have rights to live, there is no war anymore, and we're going to make peace, period.
Well, I guess that just confirms Salem as a Zionist.
It came a day when I saw the blind sheikh having 63,000 US dollars in a piece of newspaper wrapped, give it to Muntasir al-Zayyat, his Egyptian attorney, and he said, give this lil-Hagga, al-Hagga, which is his wife. Next morning, I contacted my Egyptian intelligence friends in Egypt. I said, Muntasir al-Zayyat coming back to Cairo, he have a newspaper wrapped under his clothes from the blind sheikh. I think it has some instruction to his followers.
At this point, it might be worth considering what Salem has admittedly disclosed here about having intelligence contacts back in Egypt, that he certainly must have also had contacts before he got involved with the cell the first time, which is one of the reasons why heads of the FBI didn't trust him, because they didn't know who he was ultimately serving. One of the greater reasons why to suggest Salem could have at least still had oversight or a bird's eye view of the cell members conspiring and making the bomb for the World Trade Center, as it was also reported in New York Times on April 5, 1993, that Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak said that the bombing could have been prevented if U.S. officials had heeded Egypt's warning about an Islamic fundamentalist network in the United States.
The disaster at the World Trade Center could possibly have been prevented. That from Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak, who said officials here did not pay attention to warnings that an Islamic fundamentalist network was operating in the United States. Mubarak, who began a U.S. visit today, said his government has been cooperating with American authorities all along.
There are definite information being exchanged, and we still have cooperation in that field between the two intelligence for the sake of preventing this terroristic groups.
And could the World Trade Center bombing, do you believe, have been prevented?
Maybe. I'm not sure of that, but maybe.
And in my conversation with them, they always say, let us to make them live in terror. And nothing beat terror but terror. So we have to do military, and there is no mercy here.
Looking back on everything from 93 to 9/11, being himself in the middle of its origin, Imad Salem is deeply invested in protecting the official versions, which is tremendously counter to Alex Jones's platform, who had long promoted the 1993 World Trade Center bombing as a domestic operation, claiming it as one of his founding wake-up calls, an inside job, as he still does for 9/11. But few have seen this Salem interview. Right before his second appearance on Jones's show, he did an interview with New York 9/11 truth activist Sander Hicks, where not only did Imad spend a great majority of the interview laying out the official narratives pre- and post-1993, even suggesting Mohammed Atta was taking orders from Osama bin Laden, but unlike other interviews, Sander, with limited time and wanting to shift the conversation into areas of 9/11 that conflict with the official story, boldly went straight to this question.
So I have a couple of other questions I wanted to run by you. It seems like you know a lot about 9/11, and it's great to talk to as somebody who's been inside the FBI. What do you know? Have you looked into Mossad, the Israeli connection? There was an arrest of several celebrating Israeli.
Who is full of explosive.
Right, the moving van guys. There were guys from Israel who were videotaping the attacks, and they were holding up cigarette lighters like it's a rock concert, and they were high-fiving each other. and they were arrested by New Jersey state troopers, and then were released, and they got back to Israel, and they were on Israeli television. This is what really...
There are two different groups. The people who were high-fiving each other, watching the planes hitting, videotaping them, these people were not they were not arrested, and they went back to Israel, and they submitted interviews to the Israeli TV, and they acknowledged that they were taping the interview, the bombing of the 1991 World Trade Center.
2001.
2001.
Right.
Israel is so powerful in the United States. Nobody will deny that. And is Israel spying on the United States? Absolutely. I have an intimate knowledge of that.
Yeah, I think William Kunstler was onto something with his own investigations in regards to being tipped about Imad Salem receiving monies from Kahana Chai. Particularly when on his defense team, he had attorneys like Ron Kuby, who at the age of 13, after his parents divorced, joined the JDL under the influence of his father, who was a follower of Kahane, and immigrated to Israel as a teenager, but returned to the U.S. after being disillusioned by Zionism and Jewish extremism with its racism towards Arabs. But with the completely opposite end, with Salem being the Zionist, even with his position of deniability in the conspiracy to build the bomb for the World Trade Center on February 26, 1993, with consideration that federal authorities are not entirely being forthcoming either. Salem was never considered trustworthy by the Bureau since the beginning. And just by examining a fuller-length recording of the public Salem and Antisev tape, rather than just a sensationalized soundbite taken out of context, which generically, in the minds of some truth-seekers, has been misconstrued as Imad Salem being a whistleblower, Salem was obviously an extortionist in regards to getting paid for his services. His excuses for quitting the first time likely had to do with the same exorbitant amount he asked for and got the second time around, rather than it just being over family death threats. Being that Salem's polygraph tests were inconclusive, he could have been nefarious still, and had also been accepting other bids by organized interests, or had actual oversight or a bird's-eye view on the operation making the first bomb, making certain or even alerting Egyptian intelligence at the bare minimum that the bomb was going to go forward.